You're going to see some changes around the channel here, a little bit of programming ups and downs, and even some visual shifts. But speaking of refits, retools, and reimaginings, it looks like Marvel's headed for a reboot. That's right. Marvel star Anthony Mackie says Captain America Brave New World will serve as a clear reset for the MCU. Quote, it's a new storyline with new characters, with new beliefs. What? What kind of new belief? Okay, so Phase 5 is already in wreckage. Like, Josh Berger, one of the editors and contributors for Bounding Into Comics, he calls Daredevil Born Again. He calls that Daredevil Try Again. And I think that fits at this point. They've had to redo this thing twice now. It's not just once that they goofed this. You remember the first time they tried this whole thing, they couldn't get the Punisher on board with it. Now they've got him on board, but set photos have leaked that he's doing the whole Punisher hunts down people, the police using his symbol. Right? Because I punish the bad guys. You guys use my symbol to just catch them, let them go again, or the corrupt cops. You wait, there'll be human traffickers that are using the symbol just to make sure that it scares off anybody who uses it on like their gun, or if there are police departments that have these on the side of their police cars. I'm not a fan of that, but I know what the Punisher is throughout his legacy, right? That's not what I want a police officer to be. That's Judge Dredd for police officers, right? We don't need that. I don't want that. I want like the cop from the Norman Rockwell paintings, right? And Brave New World with its new storylines and new ideas just sounds like too much of new stuff. It sounds like you're taking something that would be like welcomed and comfortable and recognizable, like a Norman Rockwell painting, and like your AI goofing it up into some like hyper gothic Chinese anime. So just don't do that. There's too much change at once. You know what'll work great for Anthony Mackie becoming, globally recognized as the leading man in Marvel? Giving him a real cookie cutter movie, a real cookie cutter plot to like showcase him being the winged Captain America, to show that without the super soldier serum, he's still as much of a soldier as Captain America Steve Rogers. All right? That would be fine. You could totally do that. You could move forward with Bucky being the Winter Soldier, the secondary companion to this. You could even resurrect She-Hulk and give her a role in all of this that doesn't make her like Sex and the City annoying fetish doll character like they did in the show. Maybe she lifts up a car. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if like a green anger-driven monster person picked up a car in the Marvel Universe and just pitched it? I didn't even have to hit anything. Wouldn't it just be cool for once in 10 years to finally see a Hulk do something? When was the last time we saw a Hulk? I can't remember. I think it was Endgame. As far as I'm concerned, the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe should have ended at Infinity War. And I jokingly pretend that it ended there, but you and I both wish it did. At this point, you and I both wish that Thanos won and the Avengers went home and tried to rebuild. I mean, that would have been a way better plotline than what they're doing now that they're having to force a reboot. I talk about this all the time. See, this is one thing that I really have a problem with Marvel. They had the perfect opportunity with Tony's snap. They had set him up to be a paranoid guy that worried about protecting the Earth, that worried about having all these different threats from different universes, different timelines, different planets, whole different hierarchies of gods, all this other stuff, right? It would make sense that when Tony did the snap there, he says, I'm Iron Man, and he snaps, right? And he dies, right? That he sacrifices himself to introduce the mutants, the Fantastic Four, and all these other Marvel heroes. Of course, their villains would have to come through because balance and all that other jazz. Light meets the darkness, rises meets the light, blah, blah, blah. Force is female, whatever you want to do. But again, that would have been the reset point. That would have been the point where you go, nope, we're doing it over again, right? Would have been a perfect time to reset everything and go back and revisit the Marvel Universe from stage one again. But do your refit. Maybe you have Ironheart be the one that's trapped out in the cave in the desert and has to build her way out, and her suit's a little bit different than Tony's. Maybe it has a different power source. Maybe she doesn't end up with the arc reactor in her chest like in the comics. She has it built off to the side. I don't know. Again, There's a lot of different ways you can go about this. You can restart the Marvel Universe instead of out of like machinery, science, and sarcasm with Tony Stark. You can restart it out with Miles Morales as Spider-Man if you want. I'm not opposed to these ideas, is the thing. I don't have a problem with Miles Morales so long as he's not being used as a token. Right? And I'm sure you don't either. What annoys you the most is that he's being ramrodded into these stories instead of being given a proper place inside of the Spider Pantheon, if you will. Okay? And that, again, so many things could have been fixed right there when he made the snap, right there when Tony snapped at the end of Endgame. But no, we just had to go back to the status quo, right? The before Thanos moment. And then we all go, whew, that was really close. I'm really glad we have all these people back that are going to immediately leave the MCU right after this movie. How much sense did that make? None. I mean, Chadwick Boseman, they didn't see coming, but I mean, considering that he was one of the guys that got snapped out, it really would have been like a godsend had they left him as one of the people that got snapped out by Thanos. And then they would have been like, whoa, he passed away, had a proper ceremony for him, and then not had this stupid Shuri thing happen with Wakanda Forever, where she's somehow able to top Namor from Aztec Lantis. I'm sorry, it just gets me so angry because I thought I predicted what the Russos were gonna do with Endgame. I thought I had it. I thought they were gonna go, bang, we're gonna introduce the mutants now. We're gonna introduce the Fantastic Four. We're gonna introduce the Brotherhood of Mutants. We're gonna introduce all these other cosmic characters. The Surfer's going to show up. All these other beings are going to be brought into the Marvel Universe because of Tony Stark's paranoia and need to protect his daughter and Pepper. Right? Like, that would have tracked. That, like, all these people at the funeral would have been talking about Tony's death, and then you have, like, Professor Xavier. You fade out and have Professor Xavier with Cerebros on, and he pulls off the helmet, and he looks to Jean, and he looks to Scott, and he says, it would appear that we're not alone anymore. You know, like, that's it. You're done. You're in. Done. You don't have to do Wolverine's claws bursting through Deadpool. You don't have to do this crazy buddy cop adventure. You've introduced the mutants right there, back at the end of Endgame. That's how easy it would have been, and they didn't do it. Does that not make, like, the little vessels in your brain burst with rage of how easy that could have been? You could have had Reed Richards just walking outside and like stretching up and looking over the skyline and seeing Avengers Tower and going back down to Sue and saying, well, I don't remember that being there. You know, and you talk about the convergence of realities then that was mentioned in Doctor Strange Mom. That's what I call it, Doctor Strange Mom. Think about the acronym, right? You got Doctor Strange and then Multiverse of Madness. Nobody saw this in the planning room. That's another thing that bothers me about Phase 5. That's another thing that bothers me about this, right? Is that Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and what's the story about? A strange mom. A strange mom who's going around hurting people, obviously, but Doctor Strange Mom. That's the title of the movie, Doctor Strange Mom, when you abbreviate that down. And guess what? It's a summation of the movie as well. I bet somebody in the planning room thought they were genius coming up with that, but it always makes a meme in my head. And also the pizza balls. Can we just agree that pizza balls are probably the worst addition to the MCU? Like, they're like the lead characters in Doctor Strange Mom. You got Doctor Strange, you've got America Chavez, you got pizza balls, then you've got Scarlet Witch. The pizza balls always come before Scarlet Witch, okay? That's how the movie went. And again, this is another problem, is you have people that are creating these things that don't have any vision. So they go, what would kids relate to? What would a teenager think is funny that a fellow teen would be Oh yes, pizza balls. This is what we will make America Chavez, a universe-hopping cosmic entity at this point. She can pretty much she has super strength. She can open up portals into different realities. And again, like, she's a cosmic entity at this point, and she's obsessed with pizza balls. I mean, I'm sure it sounds clever, like you're sitting in your writing room with 14 people, right? You're sitting around 14 other people thinking like, wow, our brains are so big. We're going to create so much inclusion and diversity here with pizza balls. I don't know. I read this headline, and throughout the whole weekend, I've just had a headache trying to figure out what they're talking about when they say new characters with new beliefs. And don't worry, there's nothing Mackie says later on in the article clarifies any of this at all. It's just more hyper corporate speak that sounds good, but it doesn't mean anything at all. And really, in the wake of the revelations surrounding Captain America Brave New World and a purported clear reset for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's hard not to feel a sense of skepticism looming over the future of the once revolutionary franchise. With the MCU phase dive already facing significant setbacks and failures, it's becoming increasingly apparent that Marvel Studios may have lost its touch. These failures underscore a troubling pattern within Marvel Studios, one that prioritizes spectacle over substance and marketing strategies over storytelling. It's a far cry from the days when the MCU was lauded for its innovative approach to serialized storytelling and interconnected, rather, not intercorrective, right? Now they're intercorrective narratives, right? They're interconnected way back in the day. But here's the thing, right? This is why I read this excerpt right here from what I've got going. I read this because it brings me back to what Scorsese said about what the biggest problem with the MCU is it's formulaic. It's like a theme park ride. Now, you and I both recognize this because it's kind of how comics work. If you're any kind of comics fan, if you've read more than two, you know there's a pattern to these things beyond, the gutters and sequential art and covers and color covers and things like that. There's a different tropiness to them. There are different beats and different, plot points that are sort of constant through almost every comic book story. Almost everyone, right? But this is the problem with what, Mackie said before. They're out of ideas. You got to remember that. He said this before. They're out of ideas. They can't compete with Stan Lee. The creativity of the MCU has never been lower. And now they're coming out and they're saying, oh, well, we've got these new characters, these new beliefs. So rather than give us an engaging storyline, rather than even just going and copy and pasting a comic book run from the 70s or 80s, whenever they'd like, they're just going to insert more Tumblrisms into the MCU. That's all I could come up with throughout the entire weekend of trying to figure out what they were up to with this new character's new belief statement, because nothing else came out around it. And that's what I came to the conclusion of, is that rather than trying to even tell us something MCU-centric, they're just going to hammer Tumblrisms into the script and call it a day. That's what these multiple rewrites are, is to keep up with the shifting culture that's changing by the day, rather than trying to teach us something, I don't know, wholesome. Or in fact, maybe just give Sam, the titular character of Captain America Brave New World, a slam dunk, rather than a political screed, rather than socio-political engineering. Why don't we give good old Sam an easy slam dunk? Oh well. Let me know how you feel about this down below. Do you think the MCU can be saved with new beliefs and new characters? Or do you think it's far beyond its shelf life, if you will? Has the cheese gone moldy? Let me know down below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. And until then, good luck out there.